hope you are all well. This is our October meeting for Community Board 8. And we have a lot of businesses this evening, including the budget district. This year, the agencies have asked the community boards in Brooklyn especially, I believe, to send supporting recommendations to the mayor for their budgets. So I ask you all to pay particular attention to the budget requests for the agencies that are listed in the budget documents that I hope you've all had a chance to review. So before we get started, it's now 6:15. I will ask for a roll call from Secretary Ridderwax.
Good evening, everybody. As I suggested in the chat, there's two ways we can keep things a little more smooth when we call the roll. Please make sure that your name is visible on your face as I see them. And when the roll is called, I will be doing it alphabetically by your last name. So please try to unmute yourself in advance of when you know your name is going to be called, and remute yourself once your vote has been taken. If I hear your vote, I will say thank you. If I do not say thank you and I move on, that means I didn't hear you. So either you didn't unmute or it's a problem on my end, but listen for the thank you. If you didn't hear it, say something in the chat or unmute and talk to me at the end.
Mr. Witherwax, if I may, before you get started, I'm getting a text message from a fellow colleague on the board who's saying that by calling in, he's not allowed to engage with audio, and he's not showing up other than through a phone number.
I'm sorry, Mr. Ellis, wouldn't he get audio on the phone?
He's hearing us, but he's able to engage with the audio, meaning he cannot communicate back. So his roll call or his attendance vote will not be able to be heard.
Not good. Thank you.
I think that might be the case on a few other people trying to just dial in through the dial-in direct.
The same problem. Can you guys hear me?
Boyd, hi, Julia. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, so we shall proceed with the agenda for this evening. Believe we have a presentation. Ms. George, can you announce that?
Well, do we call first? I'm sorry.
Yeah, let's go through the roll call.
You have a bad connection, Ms. Dias.
I will speak slowly. Is that better?
Yes.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. Okay, Mr. Witherwax, as Mr. Ellis reminded us, please do the roll call.
Yes. Money Allison.
Present.
Thank you. Linda Andrews. Lisa Atkinson. Wayne Bailey. Princess Ben James. Julia Boyd.
Julia Boyd is here.
Thank you.
I can't.
Thank you, Ms. Boyd. Gail Branch Muhammad. John Buckholz.
Here, thank you.
Also, sorry, Gail is here also.
Yes, and this is John Buckholz. I'm present.
Thank you, Mr. Buckholz. Thank you, Ms. Branch Muhammad. Robert Callahan.
I'm here.
Thank you. Hanji Charles. Helen Coley. Nora Daniel. Thank you. James Ellis.
Here.
Thank you. Kevin Farley.
Here.
Thank you. Andrea Ferris. Fred Frazier, Drew Gabriel, Tamika Gibbs, Najani Granville, Igenie Harris Blenman, Marva Henry,
Present.
thank you. Zerzima Jordan, Regina Kinsey, Sarah Lazar, Mireille Lemang,
Present.
thank you. Elaine Mahoney, Calvis Mickelsteins, Robert Puka, Yaya Raji,
Here.
thank you. Adam Sachs,
Present.
thank you. Brian Saunders,
Present.
thank you. Janola Soko, Meredith Staten, Carmisha Superville, Humphrey Tate Paul, Mark Certain,
I'm here.
thank you. Greg Todd, Ethel Thomas,
Present.
thank you. Gib Vacone,
Present.
thank you. Eves Villas, Kimberly Watson, Irsa Witherspoon,
Present.
thank you. Sharon Wedderburn, Robert Witherwax present. Deborah Young,
Present.
thank you. Phil Mizuka. We only have 20 out of 47. We do not yet have a quorum.
Mr. Witherwax, in the chat, Miss Sarah Lasser has announced that she's here.
Thank you.
Present.
Ms. Granville is also present.
Thank you.
Mr. Witherwax, Miss Jordan said, and also she just texted me, she's calling in but can't speak.
Thank you. That brings us to 22. We still need 2 more bodies.
Okay, we can start.
We'll start a discussion with a presentation from, who is our guest this evening, our guest speaker? Ms. George?
Miss Lorraine Brown, she's on.
Yes, this is Lorraine Brown. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Community Board 8. I'm sorry that all you can see is the top of my head, but in better times, we will all be able to be in the same room. And thank you for allowing me to speak with the Community Board tonight. I'm here to talk about the Interfaith Medical Center and our plans around our pediatric inpatient services. During the height of the first wave of the COVID pandemic, we essentially transformed our pediatrics unit into intensive care bed capacity in order to essentially triple the number of ICU beds that Interfaith has. We went from 13, our ongoing number of intensive care beds, to 43 beds, and that included the use of 6 of our pediatrics inpatient unit beds. The reason we were able to do that is because the daily census on our pediatrics unit has been extremely low. Over the last 3 years, we've had anywhere between 2 and 3 patients on our 10-bedded pediatrics unit. And therefore, even as the wave of COVID hospitalizations significantly declined, and the use of intensive care beds has gone down to our normal utilization, we stepped back to think about what would we do in terms of our pediatric inpatient capacity. I should have introduced as the CEO of both Interfaith Medical Center and the One Brooklyn Health System. And I apologize for not introducing myself in that way, because as we were considering what the future would be in regards to our pediatric inpatient services, We're also looking at the pediatric inpatient capacity and utilization at Brookdale Medical Center. The One Brooklyn Health Center system includes Kingsbrook Jewish Medical Center, Brookdale Hospital and Medical Center, and Interfaith Hospital, as well as 3 nursing homes and at least 10 family care centers or ambulatory care centers. So in going back and looking at the last 3 years of pediatric inpatient utilization at Brookdale, we saw that the utilization of that 30-bed unit has also significantly declined. We have at any given time 8 to 9 youngsters in the pediatric inpatient unit at Brookdale. And the reason for the decline is principally a good news item. Many children don't need to be hospitalized, particularly in the last 10 years. More of many of the hospitalizations related to asthma and the success in treating asthma and having asthma action plans and educating families as to what to do to prevent asthma attacks has been successful. And when a child needs to be in a hospital, that child is very sick and often needs to be in a specialty children's hospital. So the utilization declines have not been a surprise, and therefore we stepped back to look at what might we do in terms of better using resources. So essentially we are proposing to consolidate the 2 units at Brookdale. I mentioned an average of 2 to 3 children in Interfaith and 8 to 9 at Brookdale. And in consolidating, we would have a census of 12, even though Brookdale has a 30-bed unit. That consolidation to Brookdale was an important consideration because Brookdale also has a pediatric intensive care unit. So as the needs of a child might be more significant or more serious than what Interfaith could provide, Brookdale has that capacity, and then a step down could occur in terms of the level of intensity of services to the child in a regular pediatric unit at Brookdale. Since we commandeered the pediatric beds in early March and through the end of September, we have essentially had 26 or so youngsters present in Interfaith's emergency room or emergency department. 2 of those youngsters were transferred to Brookdale and would have been transferred had we not had inpatient pediatric services, or had we continued to have the inpatient pediatric services in operation, because those 2 youngsters needed psychiatric inpatient care, and Brookdale has a child and adolescent in a psychiatric unit. About 5 of those youngsters were transferred to Specialty Children's Hospital, to Maimonides that has a Specialty Children's Hospital, and to the Cohen Hospital. And 19 of those youngsters who came to the Interfaith Emergency Department and who needed to be hospitalized were transferred without event to Brookdale. As the youngsters are discharged, they are discharged back to their treating pediatrician, be that a pediatrician from the community or a pediatrician who works at Interfaith Bishop Walker Health Center. I should add that the consolidation of the inpatient services does not mean that Interfaith is closing or reducing our level of services on an outpatient basis. We still and will continue to provide primary care or outpatient pediatric care, pediatric specialty care on an outpatient basis. We have an extensive array of dental services, pediatric dental services, and again, we will continue to ensure that if a youngster is hospitalized at our sister facility, that youngster will be able to return and get their ongoing treatment at Interfaith Bishop Walker. Moreover, we have significant investment, or we will be making a significant financial investment in a capital improvement in our emergency department. Because one of the things that we have learned, we actually convened focus groups of consumers and others who have used, whose family members have used our emergency department, is that right now the design of our ED does not separate children from the adult population. And so we've undertaken a design or a redesign of our new ED. The renovations will begin in the middle of 2021. And in that new design, we will have a discrete space for youngsters and their families. And that will include 2 bays or rooms, so that if a youngster needs to be observed over an extended period of time, we will have that opportunity. As I mentioned, in terms of the numbers of transfers that have occurred since March 1st, it's about 3.5 transfers a month of youngsters. So having those 2 observation beds and this discrete space for children should enable us to provide the requisite triaging and emergency and urgent care for children and their families at Interfaith's emergency department. I would also say that we are, over the next 2 years, are going to be doing a significant renovation at Bishop Walker. And that would include the total revamping of our outpatient pediatric services. And so we are very much looking forward to that. And in that context, we are continuing to provide our extensive sickle cell services from pediatric, from youngsters to adults. But we are very proud of our pediatric sickle cell program that occurs at Bishop Walker. When a hospital or any healthcare organization changes its services, either through consolidation or closing or reducing, the question is asked as to what does that mean for the staff. In this instance, with the exception of 4 part-time pediatricians, all the staff have been able to be redeployed into positions at Interfaith. And in terms of the doctors, there were a total of 9 doctors impacted by our change. They're not full-time doctors, part-timers. And 5 of those pediatricians are going to continue to work for the One Brooklyn Health System. They will be providing services at Bishop Walker or at the Brookdale Hospital Center. And importantly, 2 of the physicians will be providing services at our Rutland Nursing Home, which is on the Kingsbrook campus, where we have a special needs unit, a pediatric special needs unit that is comprised of 25 beds for children who are very fragile and vulnerable. And in fact, we've been able to bring youngsters back who've been placed out of state because of their needs in our creating this special needs pediatrics unit on the campus of Kingsbrook and at our Rutland Nursing Home. So I'm going to pause there because I don't want to be talking at you. I would very much appreciate any questions that you have for me. And I know you have a really busy agenda, so I don't want to take up too much of your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brown. Do you have any printed materials we can post on the community board website?
I can send you some material about what we're doing. I certainly would be willing to do that. And importantly, send you materials about our services at Bishop Walker and at Interfaith and Brookdale and Kingsbrook in terms of our outpatient service.
Thank you very much. We'll look to post that material on our resources section of our website.
And I don't know, Sharani Perry may be on the phone, but I'll make sure that Sharani follows up in getting you that information. I so much appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I'll ask Ms. George for the next item on the agenda.
Good evening, everyone.
The next item is the budget.
Okay, so we shall proceed with our budget review. We'll go item by item, and I have to ask Ms. George to guide us through that process.
Okay, the statement that I sent you, you need to read the statement first to explain the budget process.
Thank you. All right. In response to tonight's budget request, keep in mind that starting in May and ending through the end and extending through the end of July, the district office sends mailings, emails, and surveys to residents requesting assistance in discovering what is needed in the community. Once the information is gathered, we submit our items to the community for review during a public hearing in September. It is at this public hearing that additional requests can be taken from the floor by those in attendance. Additionally, this public hearing serves the purpose of assisting the board in prioritizing what is submitted. We also rely on our committees to discuss what types of programs are needed in their general coverage areas. Therefore, our budget items are a compilation of what was submitted to the district office and what the office staff recognizes is needed in the community. Based on questions and complaints fielded during the course of the year. We understand that different demographics need different things. That is why we reach out to the community for input. Excuse me, please shut that off. I'm sorry. So with that, we will proceed with the comments received.
So we're only taking comments tonight or additions. Only comments on budget items or additions to the budget items. That's all we're doing tonight. Any comments? We emailed it out to the community, to the board members. So we would like comments to what we're submitting or any additional items to be submitted. We received a few via email.
Miss George, do you want us to recap anything that was emailed, or is that sufficient?
Yeah, we're not going through all the items. We're not reading it tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions or
Okay.
comments? Any additions?
As someone who's monitoring the chat and the Q&A, if you do have any questions or comments about the budget that was circulated, please acknowledge yourself in the chat and the Q&A when we can then hear your point.
Hi, this is Robert Callahan. I wanted to know if this is the final stage, this comments and additions process, because this is the first time seeing a document like this, and would be interested to know if we're midway through the process, at the beginning of the process, end of process.
We're at the very beginning of the process.
Okay, Mr. Callahan, this is fiscal 22. This would start in next July 1st. So it's always a half a year ahead. Over the past week, Ms. George and I, Ms. Neal, we've sat in on budget updates from the various service agencies of the city. And they are asking that if you see a need to send a letter to the mayor asking to increase their budget. So one of the things I was able to put in for sanitation is to ask that the trucks have brooms and shovels to sweep up any bags that burst, spillage from bags that burst as they are doing their regular service. So it's small things, but at the end of the day, it all adds up. We have some other serious issues in the district that I hope will come out as we step through this process. So I hope people speak up because this is a chance to bring these things forward.
Ms. Tyus, I'd like to acknowledge Sarah Lazar, who has a question or comment.
Hello. I was wondering if this would be an appropriate place to insert a request for the city to provide land use training for us. I don't know if that fits into the scope of what's being done here or not.
No, that's not a budget request item.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
But we are in the process of scheduling land use training for Community Board 8. We're working on it.
Excellent.
Yeah, we are working on that.
Thank
Sign
you.
me up.
Ms.
Okay, thank
Lazar.
you.
You'll be getting information over the next week for city planning to come in and do a webinar during our regular meeting. Maybe not. We'll have to agree on some dates to discuss zoning, the basics on zoning, especially regarding M-Crown, and we'll go into that more over the next couple of days. And then we'll also be asking the Borough President's Land Use Director, Richard Barak, to come in and talk about ULURP. Hopefully that'll be December or January. So we'll be having those things.
Excellent. And I think my next question was just what Kathy Islin put. Would it be open to everyone in the community or just board members? Because I know that I just know lots of people who are very interested in learning more about this.
Oh, it'll be open. Yeah,
It'll be posted on the community board's calendar.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any other recommendations, suggestions, additions to various agency budgets? Speak up now. My daughter always says a closed mouth doesn't get fed.
Ms. Tyus, if I may, I would encourage those, if you have a chance to review that, to please, if you haven't been able to review this, to do so and support our efforts in identifying our most premium needs. I do see a comment coming in, so let me acknowledge Mr. Buckholz. Mr. Buckholz, would you like to mention your comment, or should I just read it from the chat?
I'm happy to have you read it. I think that mostly is self-explanatory. I'm not sure that I have an exact concrete proposal, but the merge and the way that the traffic at the merge of Rogers and Bedford, especially as cars are trying to get through the signal in Atlantic, I would be surprised if there haven't been significant killed or serious injury accidents at that merge/intersection. And I would think, regardless of anyone's feelings about motorists, pedestrians, cyclists, it's really something that is badly in need of some study and improvement for calming.
Okay, we can reach out to DOT and request a study. That's not a budget item either, but we can request a study of that area.
So this is Robert Callahan again. Can you explain what the extent, the scope of what, are we talking about tangible budget proposals for the capital and expense budgets? Like what is the scope of something that could be proposed? Because some of these seem to be.
I told you guys like about 3 times the budget item didn't explain.
Right. No, I'm sorry. I just happen to work for a budget oversight agency. And so I'm going to have a lot of questions about this. That I'm happy to, if this is going to be a long process, I'm happy to take offline and offer my services. But the nature of the proposals seem to be, some of them are pretty broad and some of them are very specific proposals, and just wanted to get a clear understanding.
Let me point out.
Mr. Witherwack?
I just think it would be wise to take Mr. Callahan up on his generous offer to lend his expertise offline after this meeting, so we can get this improve this process. So I think that's a great.
Absolutely.
Raising your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Wax. I want to remind our attendees and our participants that these materials are available on the City Council website by community district and by category, expense budget and capital budget items for fiscal 22, also for fiscal 21, where we are now. And so please take a look at that. Ms. Neal did send out our items about 4 weeks ago, maybe 5 weeks ago. It sounds like people didn't get a chance to look at that, but we will improve as we go forward.
Hi, it's Lisa Atkinson here. There's something that I saw on the budget that I think is incorrect. Under services and programming related to educational facility programs, you have renovate or upgrade middle intermediate school MS 584 located at 130 Rochester Avenue. MS 584 no longer exists. The new school is MS 898, the Brooklyn Green School.
So Lisa, thank you for that. That was a budget request that began in another year. And until all projects are complete, it's going to be known under that rubric, although the Department of Education is fully aware of the name change and the number change.
Okay.
Ms. Wedderburn, do you mind identifying yourself for the benefit of the crowd? That was Ms. Wedderburn. She's co-chair of the Education Committee.
Yeah.
Are there any other comments on the request for the budget for fiscal 22 by agency type with any particulars?
Hi, I have a question.
Great.
Well, more of a comment. All of these proposals are pretty good and current. I'm just curious about the dollar amounts as it corresponds to each need, and if those amounts will sort of decrease or increase as we enter this sort of post-COVID type of society, if you will. Just because I see more issues sort of taking precedence over others, but that's just a curiosity.
What the agencies are asking us to do is, as boots on the ground, so to speak, we see what's lacking in our community district, and the agencies are asking us to identify for them what services are lacking. So we need to point out to them where the holes are, and they will put the dollar amount on it going forward. Right now, we are in a revenue decrease mode. So most agencies, all agencies are operating on what we call PEG, projects to eliminate the gap. And frankly speaking, most agencies are being asked to furlough their employees for periods of time during this fiscal year and during this calendar year, a day a month, a day a week, through December and so on. So we are facing dire times financially as far as revenue goes. All the revenues are down everywhere. So we will be looking at PEGs going forward. Right now, we have to put a pin in the budget, a note in the budget for these service agencies, every city agency that has a capital or expense budget. We're addressing both of them this evening to tell them what we need on the community district level. So that's what we're asking you to identify. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
For clarity, can we? What is the comment period that you're keeping this portion open for?
Tuesday. Tuesday is the deadline.
Tuesday.
Tuesday the 13th.
Thank you.
Hi, can I just ask, in regards to the budget for policing and crime, it says increase resources for youth crime prevention programs. Are we taking any proposals or funding requests from any nonprofit organizations that can provide those services? Because I know just by Brower Park this week, there were 2 shootings, and the issue is, what are we going to do about this? Get the guns out of these kids' hands and give them productive things to do. So the funding, in what specific way are we going to get organizations the money to provide these services to the community?
Thank you for that inquiry, Mrs. Henry. We are working on the city's budget for its agencies, city employees, city agencies. We have an avenue through our elected officials in the council to use discretionary funds that are allotted to those council representatives based on the population in their districts. And those discretionary contracts are up to the individual council members to award to not-for-profit agencies to provide the services that they feel are necessary. Ms. George is asking me to remind all of you that the information on the budget is available in the chat for the entire budget document as this evening, and it's also available on the web. But if you look in the chat, you will see the link to the entire budget document.
Madam Chair, could I raise an issue? As you probably know, the city suspended all curbside pickup of organics citywide because of the budget crisis. But just last week, they reinstated $2.8 million for pickup of drop-off sites, of which Amani Garden is about to become one. This is only because of extraordinary pressure from the communities and the incredible interest in organics. And in fact, Antonio Reynoso, chair of the sanitation committee, has introduced what we call the CORE Act, which would create 2 drop-off sites in every one of the 59 community boards. It was not implemented because of lack of funding. But we in the Brooklyn Solid Waste Advisory Board feel that drop-off sites are much more efficient than curbside pickups in terms of the efficiency of collecting materials. And we would strongly advocate that the community board try to reinstate in the budget money for at least 2 pickup sites in each community board. Be far less money than curbside pickup and be much more efficient in collecting organics. So I would like to propose that.
Thank you, Mr. Todd. We would ask you to help identify which of the 2 pickup sites you would recommend for this community district. And we look for a written statement from you to that effect so that we can forward it to the Department of Sanitation. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair, can I make a statement and propose a motion?
Yes, sir.
So in response to tonight's budget's requests and those that can be accepted up until Tuesday, keep in mind that starting in May and extending through the end of July, the district office sends mailings, emails, and surveys to residents requesting assistance in discovering what is needed in the community. Once the information is gathered, we submit our items to the community for review during this public hearing in this time of the year. It is at this public hearing that we ask for additional requests to be taken from the floor, as we tried to do this evening and solicited. Additionally, these public hearings serves as a purpose of assisting the board in prioritizing what final decisions are submitted. We also rely on our committees to discuss what types of programs are needed in the general coverage areas. Therefore, our budget items are a compilation of what is submitted to the district office and what the office staff recognizes is needed in the community based on questions and complaints fielded throughout the course of the year. We understand these different demographics need different things, and that is why we continue to reach out for your community input. But at this time, I'd like to make a motion that the full board vote on the final submission of the budget document and give the district office the authority to use this information gathered at tonight's hearing and by email submission to prioritize the top 40 capital expenses, or top 40 capital items and the top 25 expense items. Thank you.
Second.
Who seconded?
Sharon Wedderburn.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wedderburn. Mr. Witherwax, will you please call the roll on the motion?
So they had planned, they're gonna let 3 people say something and then they'll have to make the motion to like cut.
Your comments can be heard. If there's something you'd like to say, you can chat.
All right.
Before you start, Mr. Witherwax, I'd also remind those that aren't enabled to engage on the audio to also you can potentially acknowledge in the chat as well.
Yeah, please do use the chat function if you cannot be heard. We need to either hear you or see you, preferably both. So again, I'm going to go through this alphabetically. I will say thank you if I hear your vote. If I don't, we'll come back to it.
I'm sorry, Mr. Witherwax, would you please repeat what the vote is? Yes, no, abstain, after you say the name. Can you do that, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Kimberly Allison. Mr. Allison. Andrews. Desmond Atkins. Lisa Atkinson.
Yes.
The vote is yes. Thank you. Wayne Bailey. Princess Ben James. Julia Voigt, Gail
Yeah.
Branch, Ms. Boyd votes yes. Gail Branch Mohammed,
Yes.
Branch Mohammed votes yes. John Buckholz,
Yes.
John Buckholz votes yes. Robert Callahan,
Yes.
Mr. Callahan votes yes. Hanji Charles, Ellen Coley, Nora Daniel, James Ellis.
I said yes.
Yes.
No, I didn't hear you, Ms. Daniel. Thank you. Ms. Daniel votes yes. Mr. Ellis votes yes. Mr.
I
Farley.
also- Chat, Mr. Allison voted yes.
Mr. Allison voted yes in the chat. Mr. Farley.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Farley votes yes. Ms. Ferris. Mr. Frazier. Mr. Gabriel. Gibbs. Ms. Granville.
Unmute and
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Yes. Jeannie Harris Glenman. Marv.
She votes yes.
I'm sorry, who was that?
That's Mark. She votes yes. Texting me.
Who votes yes?
Ms. Jordan? Is that who you mentioned?
Ms.
Ms. Harris
Blendman?
Glenman? Marva Henry?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Henry votes yes. Suzima Jordan?
I apologize. Yes for her by way of text.
Ms. Jordan?
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Thurton. Ms. Jordan votes yes. Ms. Kinsey? Laser?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Lazar. Votes yes. Ms. Lemaine?
Yes.
Ms. Lemaine votes yes. Ms. Mahoney? Mr. Mickelstein's, I believe, is on the chat.
by chat, he votes yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mickelstein's. Mr. Raji?
Yes.
Mr. Raji votes yes. Mr. Sachs?
Yes, sorry.
Mr. Sachs, I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs votes yes. Mr. Saunders?
Yes.
Mr. Saunders votes yes. Ms. Captain Staton? Ms. Supervielle? Ms. Tate Hall? Mr. Thurton?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Thurton votes yes. Mr. Todd?
Yes.
Mr. Todd votes yes. Ms. Tyus?
Yes.
Ms. Tyus votes yes. Mr. Vacconi?
One moment.
Myself here.
Mr. Vacconi, do you want to log your vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sorry.
Mr. Vacconi votes yes. Mr. Villas? Ms. Watson? Mr. Weatherspoon? Ms. Spoon?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Weatherspoon votes yes. Ms. Wedderburn?
Yes.
Ms. Wedderburn votes yes. Mr. Witherwax votes yes. Ms. Young?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Mr. Witherwax, by way of chat, Mr. Robert Puka votes yes.
Mr. Puka votes yes. That means Mr. Puka is also present, and that brings us to 27 in favor, no opposed, no abstentions. Thank you. Unanimous.
Thank you, Mr. Witherwax, and we'll now move on to the next item on our agenda. Ms. George, can you bring that forward for me, please? I don't have a printed agenda in front of me.
We're up to action items right now. The first action item is Slack.
Thank you. Who's presenting for State Liquor Authority Committee?
I had myself muted. I was asking if you wanted me to proceed. I presume from no comments, that was a yes. So let me proceed. So good evening. My name is James Ellis. I'm the co-chair. I'm the chair of the SLAC Sidewalk Cafe Review Committee, and we met on Monday, October 5th, 2020 via WebEx. This committee discussed these following applications. The following renewals were presented for Cheryl's at 236 Underhill Avenue for a full license. The renewal was presented for Essex Lounge at 1666 Atlantic Avenue for a full license. And final renewal was for Bar 704 at 704 Nostrand Avenue, inclusive of a rear yard and live music and dancing, for a full license. The committee voted to support these 3 renewal applications and hopes that the full board supports its recommendation. At this time, I will be monitoring the chat or any raised hands or Q&A for any comments or questions regarding these renewal applications presented. Giving another couple seconds for people to potentially type or unmute.
James, are there any of the owners on this WebEx?
Thank you. That's a very good question. Can I ask if there's any representatives from Cheryl's or a representative from Essex Lounge?
What's their name? I need names.
I don't know. I don't recall. Cheryl is Cheryl Smith. We have Ms. Vogel and Ms. Waverick from Brooklyn Clay, but I believe theirs was a motion that was made in the, what was it, the August meeting that then was made as an executive decision. So thank you for coming, Ms. Vogel and Ms. Waverick. Oh, okay, September.
Okay, Bar 704 is here as well.
Great.
I'll make sure.
Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing or seeing none in the chat, the Q&A, or through audible transmission, I ask for a motion from a member of the committee board.
Motion to recommend renewal of all of those liquor licenses.
A second.
Is there any questions for this motion being presented to support the following renewal items, those following renewal items mentioned?
Who seconded that item?
I believe that was Ms. Young. Was that Ms. Young?
Miss Muhammad. I believe it was Miss Muhammad.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
My apologies, Ms. Muhammad. Hearing or seeing none, I ask the chair if we can call the vote.
Please call the vote.
Thank you. Mr. Ms.
I will
Andrews?
monitor his response in the chat.
Thank you. Best to wait till I'm done with the whole roll, and then I'll ask if there are any votes in the chat.
Thank you, Mr. Orthodox.
Linda Andrews and Atkins, Lisa Atkinson. Atkinson votes yes. Mr. Bailey, Ms. Ben James, Ms. Boyd. Ms. Branch.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Branch. Mohammed votes yes. Mr. Buckholz.
Did you hear Miss Boyd?
I did not, but I do now. Thank you, Ms. Boyd. Votes yes. Mr. Buckholz. Callahan.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan votes yes. Ms. Charles, Ms. Coley, Ms. Dan.
Yes.
Ms. Daniel votes yes. Thank you, Ms. Daniel.
Yes.
Mr. Ellis votes yes. Farley.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Farley votes yes. Ms. Farris, Mr. Frazier, Mr. Gabriel, Ms. Gibbs, Ms. Granville. See Ms. Granville, but I don't hear a vote. Ms. Harris-Blockman?
There you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Granville. Votes yes. Ms. Henry?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Henry votes yes. Jordan? Ms. Kinsey? Lazar?
Miss Kinsey is on the phone. She said you can't hear her. She's talking to me. She's just voted yes.
Thank you, Ms. Kinsey. Votes yes.
Ms. Jordan voted yes by
And Ms.
way of
Jordan?
text.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan. Thank you, Ms. Lazar.
And Fran Harris. So,
Thank you.
Did you get Miss Kinsey?
I did.
Okay.
Ms. Lazar?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Votes yes. Ms. Lemaine?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Lemaine votes yes. Ms. Mahoney? Mr. Middlesteins? Mr. Puka? Mr. Raji?
Yes.
Thank you. Votes yes. Mr. Sachs?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs votes yes. Mr. Saunders?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Saunders votes yes. Ms. Soko? Staton? Ms. Supervielle? Ms. Tate Hall? Mr. Thurton?
yes.
Mr. Thurton votes yes. Thank you. Mr. Todd?
Yes.
Votes yes. Thank you. Ms. Tyus?
Yes.
Ms. Tyus votes yes. Thank you. Mr. Vicconi?
Yes.
Mr. Vicconi votes yes. Thank you. Mr. Villas? Ms. Watson? Ms. Weatherspoon?
Yes.
Ms. Weatherspoon votes yes. Thank you. Ms. Wedderburn?
Yes.
Ms. Wedderburn votes yes. Thank you. Mr. Witherwax votes yes. Ms. Young?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Young votes yes. The motion passes unanimously. Let's check the chat. Anybody in the chat?
Yes, sir. I'd like to record Mr. Allison voting yes, Mr. Buckholz voting yes, Mr. Mickelstein's voting yes, Mr. Puka voting yes.
Let's back up and include Ms. Ben James. She's texting me rather than putting her vote in the chat. So I'm asking everyone who is having problems being heard to put their information in the chat so we can share it during the meeting with everyone. You
Ms. Tyus,
select chat, everyone.
I
Mrs.
will- For clarification, those that are dialing in can't engage in the chat function.
Oh, okay.
And-
Ms. Ben James has she's texting me, so I don't understand that, but at any
Can
rate.
you give us the count, the total count, final count, Mr. Witherwax?
30
Well,
in
just a
favor.
minute, Ms. George, I'm saying, Ms. Ben
Pardon
James is saying she can't be heard. And she's voted, she's asking me to let everyone know that she can't be heard. She
Okay,
doesn't
we
say what
counted
her
her.
vote is, though.
All right.
She was counted.
This is not the time to discuss this, but I have a bit of a problem with that because if I can't hear you or see you vote, how do I know it's actually you voting? Right? For tonight,
agree,
for non-controversial
100%.
issues, we'll roll with it. But let's keep that in mind for the future. If you cannot be seen and heard, you cannot participate in this meeting legally. So let's keep that in mind and try to fix it.
Okay, what we want people to know, and anyone on the call who's receiving text messages on their phone and the caller is asking them to relay to the meeting what's happening, then they need to try to dial in to the meeting and do it that way rather than calling someone else. And I think that's the best way to do it.
Right, but what happens? Okay, hold on, Miss Kinsey. People are saying, well, I have Miss Kinsey. She said that she was on the call and she was talking and no one heard her. So how do we do that? She said she called in, but nobody could hear that she was there.
She might need to check her settings, Ms. Young.
I'm sorry.
Ms. Young, she might need to check her settings, and she might need to manually unmute herself, because I believe one of the settings is to put people on mute when they enter the room.
Okay, she's saying that she was unmuted. I know I believe you're on your phone, correct?
Yeah, I'm on
She's on her cell phone.
my phone.
She said it wasn't muted. Now,
We're not talking about the cell phone muting, but we're talking about the settings of the WebEx platform that you might be using.
okay, I'm going to try to repeat that to her. She's saying they're talking about the WebEx portion of it, that you should unmute.
We can
If you're
hear.
direct, if you
Ms.
direct
Young,
dialogue,
Ms. Ellis,
can I make
Ms.
a
Young,
comment?
Mr. Ellis, Ms. Young, Mr. Ellis, we can hear Ms. Kinsey through
Yeah,
Deborah
thank you.
Young's phone.
Thank you. That's what I was going to say. Thank you.
All right,
Okay,
so that is the workaround for this meeting, and we will discuss how to fix this going forward.
okay, Miss, I'm gonna put myself on mute and repeat what you just said to her. So that for the next vote, I'll put her voice up to my computer, okay?
Thank you.
Ms. Tyus, if I may move on to the next action item.
Please do.
Thank you. All right, we were also presented a new application for BK Lobster at 643 Vanderbilt Avenue, seeking a wine, beer, and cider license. The details of the application are as followed, with 4 tables and 8 seats, but a maximum capacity of 28 under non-COVID specs. Hours of operation are presented as being closed on Monday, Sunday from noon until 8 p.m., Tuesday through Thursday, noon to 10 p.m., Friday and Saturday, noon to 11 p.m. No outdoor space was presented as a part of the formal application, but during COVID, they will be looking to take advantage of the curbside seating and offering takeout and delivery options. This is the 3rd location for BK Lobster, and the 2nd of which will have an on-premise license. The committee voted to support this application as presented by a final vote of 12 in favor, 0 opposed, and 0 abstentions, and hopes that the full board support its recommendation. Great. At this time, if anybody has any questions or comments, please acknowledge yourself in the chat. Or if easier, to unmute yourself. I'll give just another couple moments. Is the proprietor of this establishment joining us on the call today? Not sure that they are here or not, but they can acknowledge themselves in the chat or via other methods. Seeing or hearing no other indications of a question or comment about this new application presented, I'll ask for a motion from our board.
This is Sarah Lazar. I move that we accept the application as stated and as recommended by the committee.
Second.
Thank you. That was a motion by Ms. Lazar and a second by Mr. Raji. Are there any questions on the motion being presented? Seeing no indications of the question, I'll ask the chair to call the vote.
Mr. Witherwax, secretary, to call the roll on the vote.
Here we go. Mr. Atkinson in the chat.
Yes. Yes.
Ms. Andrews. Mr. Atkins.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Atkinson. Mr. Bailey. Ms. Ben James, through some telecommunication.
I'm sorry, Mr. Witherwax, if you could slow your pace a minute, because it seems like it takes 2 seconds for it to cross the ether and to get a response.
James. Ms. Boyd. Thank you.
Did you hear?
Ms. Branch
Did you
Mohammed.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Boyd and Ms. Branch Mohammed. You both voted yes. Mr. Buckholz.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Buckholz. Mr. Callahan.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Charles. Ms. Copeland. Ms. Daniel. Mr. Ellis. Thank you, Ms. Daniel.
Mr. Ellis votes yes.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Mr. Farley.
Yes.
Farley. Ms. Ferris. Mr. Frazier. Mr. Gabriel. Ms. Granville. Thank you, Ms. Granville. Ms. Harris Blenman, Ms. Henry,
Yes.
Ms. Jordan, Ms. Kinsey.
Ms. Kinsey, your turn. Say it again.
Thank you, Ms. Kinsey. Ms. Lazar.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Lazar. Ms. Lemaine.
Yes.
Lane, Mr. Milsteins, Mr. Raji.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Raji. Sachs.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. Mr. Saunders.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Saunders. Soko, Mr. Staton, Ms. Supervielle, Ms. Tate Hall, Mr. Thurton.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Thurton. Mr. Todd. Ms. Tyus.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Tyus.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Villas, Ms. Watson, Ms. Weatherburn,
Yes.
Ms. Wedderburn.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Wedderburn. Mr. Witherwax, yes. Ms. Young.
Yes.
All right. Anybody in the chat?
Yes, Mr. Witherwax, I'd like to record Mr. Puka votes yes. Mr. Carmoni Allison voted yes. He was able to get in, but I think it might have got overpassed, but he votes yes. And Mr. Mickelstein votes yes.
Thank you. Mr. Thurton, do either of your contacts, Ms. Jordan or Ms. Harris Lenman, vote yes or anything?
They
For
both,
Ms. Harris.
they both voted yes. Ms. Harris is on. Ms. Jordan said yes.
Thank you, Ms.
Elaine
Harris. Thank you for Ms.
Mahoney?
Jordan. Thank you.
Elaine Mahoney,
Ms. Mahoney?
Miss
she's also
Mahoney.
in the chat. She says she's stuck on mute. Trying to.
Yep, I see her in the chat now. She sent it to me directly.
Okay, I'll record her yes. In which case we have 29 in favor, no opposed, no abstentions.
Great, thank you very much. For those of you who aren't aware, the SLA and Sidewalk Review Committee meets on Mondays, the first Mondays of the month to review applications. I'd like to just take this moment and share with our community that there are many restaurants and beverage serving establishments that are trying to adapt in these new COVID working prescriptions. And one of the things is just as being a community effort, if you come across any issues in operations, we ask that you contact the community board office or try to reach out and speak directly with the proprietors and the principals if they're all going through a learning experience and trying to be compliant with these rules and regulations that are being updated on a regular basis. We also at the same time encourage you to try to frequent as many of our community businesses as that you feel comfortable and can, and try to help them in moving through this trying times. Thank you for the opportunity to share that message, and I hope to see you in one of our community meetings.
Mr. Ellis, may I please make a statement?
I'll defer to the chair.
Oh, Ms. Tyus. Ms. Tyus.
Yeah, I'm unmuting myself. I'd like to hear from the president of the Crown Heights North Association, who's sponsoring a special event in 2 days on Nostrand.
Okay, right. Yes, I just want to remind for those of you who are not aware, the Crown Heights North Association is sponsoring a destination Nostrand between Atlantic and Eastern Parkway. There'll be an opening ceremony starting at 12. The event is from 12 to 6. There'll be live music at 3 venues: Nostrand Social from 12 to 2, Bluefin 2 to 4, Sweet Brooklyn 4 to 6. And as I mentioned, there will be an opening ceremony from 12:30 to 1. We ask everyone to please come out and support the merchants along Nostrand Avenue corridor. And they will be offering, some of the participants are offering a 10% discount if you if you visit their establishment. So please join us as we support the merchants on Nostrand Avenue. Thank you. Gail, would you like to add anything that I forgot to mention in relation to Saturday?
No, I think you've covered it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Is this information available online anywhere?
Somebody just ran in front of the bus. Now somebody comes. Who is that?
Yes, there is a, we did send it, I think it was sent to the community board. I think it was
It's on our-
distributed. Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
It's on our website and it was emailed out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Young. So, Ms., what's next on our agenda, Ms. George?
Land use.
Land use. We have a new secretary for the Land Use Committee, Nora Daniel. And I just emailed her the report for the October 1st meeting that was prepared in the office, and I will ask her to read that. And then we can entertain questions on what's reported there. And then hear the motion that was made at the October 1st meeting. Ms. Daniel, would you read your report? You can shorten it as you go if you want to.
Email, just a moment.
Basically, here is that on Thursday, October 1st, we had a presentation from a representative of the Hope Street Capital 959 Sterling Partnership, Tiffany Raspberry and her team regarding a proposed new building on the campus of the Hebron School at 920 Park Place. The building would be on Sterling Place between New York and Brooklyn Avenues. Are you ready, Ms. Daniel?
So the Lands Committee met on Thursday. There was a presentation on, we heard an application for certificate of appropriateness for 920 Park Place. The application excavation and curb cut. The site is the current Hebron SDA Bilingual School, formerly the Methodist Home for the Aged. The application was presented by the Hebron Congregation of Northeastern Conference Corporation of the Seventh-day Adventist, Hope Street Capital, and 959 Sterling Partners. The following details were provided during the presentation. The decision to sell the portion of the property came as a result of requests from the church, as the Hebron School is currently unable to operate in the building because of dilapidation, and floors 3 through 5 are under a vacate order by the City of New York. The proceeds of the sale will allow the church to repair the building and bring students back into the building. Its proposed building is 6 stories, and the scale is considered as of right as far as current zoning laws and regulations of R6 zoning codes. 182 apartments of which 30% would be affordable. It will be a LEED building. And here were the issues raised by concerned residents and Hebron parishioners. The line of sight of the school building is obstructed by the mass and scale of the new building, with full obstruction of an entire wing of the historic building. Light blocked for adjacent neighbors and for the entirety of the block. There's a loss of green open space, which could create a heat island and exacerbate health conditions for children. The building, as presented, is institutional looking and not becoming of the area. And small apartments are not designed for long-term stay and growth in the community, but are designed for transients or short-term stays. Parishioners state that Hope Street Capital's presentation was misleading and confusing, as many congregants do not speak English and the presentation was entirely in English. It was reported that when the church voted, the younger English-speaking congregants were kicked out of the presentation,
and not allowed to participate in the vote. The affordable housing being generated will not be affordable to those that live in the community and not congregants of Hebron. The negative impact of the project is too great to ignore, along with Hebron being contacted numerous times prior to Hope Street Capital to get grants for school renovations and restoration of the property. Hope Street Capital made statements of commitment that despite the current economic uncertainty in the budgets for the state, city, and the country, that they are committed to the project. Attendees referenced other commitments that led to unfinished developments that blighted the community for decades. A motion was made and seconded for the committee to withhold support of the project as presented. A committee member offered an amendment to the motion for the committee not to support the application unless developers add a setback at the 4th floor on the Sterling Place side of the building to reduce the mass and scale and allow it to better match the shorter row houses, and for the developer to commit to affordable New York option A. The amendment was not accepted by the original motion maker nor seconded. The committee voted to withhold support for the application as presented with a final vote of 14 in favor, 2 opposed with 0 abstentions, and hopes the full board will support its recommendation to not support the Hebron project as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Daniel. Are there any questions, Mr. Ellis, on this item? You see any questions?
I have seen no indications of any questions or any comments in the chat at this time. If you feel
There's a chat Ms. Ortiz just sent. Someone has a comment. Ingrid, let me find her.
Sure, I have a statement. I have a request to make a statement from Ms. Lin Yi Yan. Pardon me for pronunciation issues. Ms. Tyus, would you?
I accept the request to make a statement.
Committee Board 8 members, I think she's saying that she can't unmute. I don't know if you can manually do that, but she also then says she would like to pass the statement to Fior. Is Fior available to make this statement?
Yes, I'm available. Ingrid has the first portion of the statement. Ingrid Saragard.
Madam Chair, would you like to hear from Ms. Ingrid first? You're on mute.
I must ask the statement makers to keep their statements to 2 minutes or less.
Ms. Ingrid Harris Blinman, please carry on.
Oh, can you hear me? I'm still muted.
Who is that?
This is Ingrid.
I unmuted you.
So,
okay.
Sorry, please hold on 1 second. I think I can help troubleshoot. It looks like you're on the phone and on the computer. Can you do one of those? That's what's creating the echo.
Oh, just a second.
Try to speak down. Maybe she.
Sorry, Ms. Blinman, that audio is not of quality at this time.
That's Ms. Saragard. Every time I try to mute her, I get the echo.
I suggest we move on to the next speaker. 2 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please identify yourself.
My name is Fior Ortiz Joyner.
Please carry on.
I'm reading this on behalf of Friends of 920, and this is our statement. Hope Street Capital's project does not have a single redeeming quality in terms of housing. The small unit sizes, as well as the building's lack of amenities, make it clear that this development is catering to young, short-term tenants who will not be looking to settle down and integrate into the community. Do not be fooled. There is no affordable housing in this development. At best, Hope Street Capital will participate in the Affordable New York Housing Program and offer 30% of apartments under this program. But the program's name is misleading. By design, only the upper middle class can afford apartments offered through Affordable New York. This year, individuals who make $100,000 a year qualified for Affordable New York apartments. Here in our neighborhood, the median income is around $40,000, and that figure is even lower for Black households. Therefore, we repeat, there is no affordable housing in this development. Lastly, we are deeply disturbed by the congregants' testimonials of the corrupt deal-making that has occurred between Hope Street Capital and the Northeastern Conference leadership. It's clear that our neighbors in the Hebron congregation are being deceived and lied to. That is an outrage. Equally troubling is the Northeastern Conference's claim in the media that the local community has never offered them any help to restore Hebron's historic building. In fact, the opposite is true. For over 15 years, local community members, including members of the Crown Heights North Association, have offered to meet with the church's leadership in order to share grant opportunities that would fund the restoration of this building. The Northeastern Conference has consistently ignored these opportunities, but we are still here and we are still willing to help. In conclusion, we urge Community Board 8 to vote against this project. This greedy developer shows no regard for community concerns, is willing to desecrate a landmark building for his own profit, has no real intention of offering affordable housing, and makes corrupt backdoor deals behind the backs of Hebron's members. For the sake of our community, please vote no on this atrocious project. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fior.
Mr. Ellis, I think we have representatives from the project proponents in the audience. Do you see any questions for them in the chat?
I see that Ms. Lin Yi is supposed to read the other half of the statement.
I'm asking, okay, in response to Ms. Fior Ortiz's statement, is there any response from the project sponsor?
Ms. Raspberry?
Yes, I would just like to say that we sent a letter to the community
Sorry,
board.
excuse me, Ms. Raspberry, do you mind just identifying yourself and your role with this project?
Yes, I'm so sorry. My name is Tiffany Raspberry, and I'm the community outreach consultant for this project. Dr. Daniel Honore, the president of the Northeast Conference of Seventh-day Adventist Churches, sent a statement dated October 7th, yesterday, to Community Board 8, addressing many of the issues that were raised in the previous statement. So I would just like to request, if it hasn't been sent out already, that everyone receive a copy of this statement if you'd like. I don't know if there's enough time, but I can read it into the record now. But if I don't have enough time, I think it would be great if everyone could receive a copy because it directly addresses many of the concerns that were raised in the previous statement.
Thank you, Ms. Raspberry. I believe that statement was distributed amongst the members of the land use or the land use committee. I will, in fairness, offer the ability to make your statement publicly here if you can keep it within the chairperson's request of 2 minutes.
I'll read through as much of it as I can. This letter, as I said, is from Dr. Daniel Honore. Dear Ms. George, in 2012, I began service as president of the Northeast Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, which is the ecclesiastical and corporate parent of nearly 200 congregations and 60,000 parishioners in New York and New England. As part of its mission, the Northeast Conference operates 15 parochial elementary and secondary schools and a 100-acre campground and 270 senior citizen subsidized housing units. The Northeast Conference supports member churches in acquiring and developing real estate. A few years ago, we received a request from the Hebron Seventh-day Adventist Church to assist in redeveloping the Hebron Bilingual School in a manner to allow restoration of its premises. We retained counsel, conducted a zoning analysis, and issued a request for proposals to qualified developers. We received 5 viable proposals. After reviewing these proposals, the church board voted to recommend the Hope Street Capital proposal to the church body for consideration. This board meeting was chaired by Pastor John Philippe, then pastor of the Hebron Church. Pastor Philippe invited me to make a presentation to the church explaining the details of the proposal on Saturday, October 14th, 2017. Being of Haitian descent, I prepared a multilingual PowerPoint presentation in English, French, and Haitian Creole. I was able to engage the young people in English and the older members in French or Creole. I responded to questions according to the language in which it was asked. That is why I was shocked to hear at the land use subcommittee that the older people did not understand what they were voting for because they do not speak English. I am still in possession of the original unedited multilingual presentation that I used for this meeting. The Hope Street proposal was the most attractive because it offered the most benefits to the church. These include $21.5 million in cash to the Hebron Church, a regulation-sized gymnasium for the Hebron School in the new building at Hope Street's expense. The school never had a gymnasium, a 2-bedroom unit in the new building deeded to the Hebron Church, and 25 underground parking spaces for the benefit of the Hebron Church and school. Following a healthy debate and a question and answer period, we posed the question as to whether the Hebron Church should proceed with the sale of the 0.acre parcel of its land in exchange for the above referenced benefits. The question was asked in both English and French. Those in favor were asked to stand. After they were counted, they were asked to sit, while those opposed were then asked to stand. I'm so sorry. 2 individuals were assigned with counting the votes. One was First Elder Emmanuel Toussaint. The other was Pastor Jape St. Louis, coordinator of the Franco-Haitian Ministries for the Northeastern Conference. Pastor St. Louis served as pastor of the Hebron Church for 6 years prior to Pastor John Philippe and is widely respected by the congregation. As the votes revealed a majority in favor of the sale, some of the opponents of the projects cried foul, claiming an inaccurate count. To display any doubts, I called for a second vote. The final tally was 101 in favor, 69 opposed. At that point, all understood and accepted the result. Based on the vote of the congregation, the Northeast Corporation Executive Committee voted to authorize the sale December 10th, 2017. Our Constitution expressly forbids the corporation from selling any property without consent of the local church.
Ms. Raspberry, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up, please.
Okay, I'll just go on to say that the pastor, the Northeast Conference would also like to raise attention to the fact that there's believed to be funding from the charter school grants for this. It says the Hebron School is not a charter school and has no interest in seeking such status. Becoming a charter school would mean surrendering our religious foundations in order to qualify for public funding. We would not be allowed to engage in prayer or Bible study with our students. We seek the same rights as the yeshivas and Catholic schools to educate our children according to our faith. And if anybody needs a copy of this letter, if you put in the chat your email address, I can send it to you so that you can review it yourself if you haven't received a copy. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple comments and requests for statements in the chat. Ms. Tyus, if I may continue. I'd like to acknowledge Ms. Is it Chi Osei? Are you able to connect with audio and make your statement?
Hello?
Yes,
Hi.
I'm sorry, Mr. Ellis and Mr. Chiose. I want to clear up a misunderstanding before we go forward, as Mr. Ellis is assisting with letting us all be aware of questions that are being posed in the chat in order to keep order during this well-attended meeting. Ms. Raspberry, your letter was not distributed to the Land Use Committee upon receipt because it went into spam. I don't think there was advance notice to the board office or to myself that the letter was coming, so it is being distributed as we speak. It adds a lot of clarity. Do I want to say clarity? It adds another dimension to statements that were made by your clients previously. So that's all very interesting as well. I don't know if this will lead to a request for a layover on this vote, because some of the things that you read out don't coincide to other statements that were made during the presentation at the October 1st meeting. But at this point, the gist of the letter is there. Mr. Ellis is indicating that we are having questions come into the chat. So I will ask Mr. Ellis to put those questions to the attendees. Thank you, Mr. Ellis, and thank you, Ms. Raspberry, for reading the letter and bringing it to our attention that it was there. I'm sorry it went into chat, but it is being distributed to the Land Use Committee as we speak.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tyus. So let me just back up. I know we acknowledged Chiose, but there is a direct question about the asking from Mr. I believe it's Ms. Naomi JB. Has the developer clarified which affordable housing option they are selecting, or is there still no commitment? Ms. Raspberry, can you respond to that?
Yes, we are still in such an early stage of this process that we have not decided, my client has not decided on an affordable housing level yet.
Thank you.
Let me just add, I'm sorry, Mr. Ellis, we did get a letter from Mr. Siegel on Friday, which I just forwarded earlier today to the Land Use Committee, that indicated the 3 different options that would be available.
Thank you. I'll now ask, I'll bring back Chiose. Sorry again for pronunciation.
Chiose, no worries.
Thank
you everyone for letting me speak. I just want to, I guess, address the community board and especially members that may have not attended October 4th.
Chiose, if I can interrupt real quick before you get into your statement. Are you a resident of CB8?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I am a resident of CB8 for 12 years. To any community board members that were not in attendance at the October 1st meeting regarding this development, the energy regarding the concern of community members was heavily against this development, and for right reason. Friends of 920 have garnered support from New York State Senate candidate Jabari Brisbort in the 25th District, our soon-to-be Assemblywoman Farrah Forrest in our current Assembly District was also against this development as well. Not only is this threshold of affordable housing in murky waters, as we've seen developments do in the past in central Brooklyn, but this will also be taking away from a large plot of green space within our community. It will raise the temperatures within our community. It will pollute the air as well as add noise pollution. The entire community, or at least the majority of this community, especially as someone that has lived here for over a decade and has grown up in the neighborhood, is ferociously against this development. So we heavily urge the community board to vote no or vote against this development. Thank you.
Thank you for your statement. I have a question. I have a series of technical questions being posed by Mr. Rob Mandelbaum. Ms. Raspberry, if you're able to respond to these, we appreciate it. It says, can someone explain from Hebron, explain the breakdown of the $21.6 million? How much is cash compensation and how much of it is in-kind rehabilitation? If you would like to start with those questions, I have a couple. There's another set of follow-up to that.
I don't have an answer to that question, Morris, or are you able to shed some light on that question? I have a number of people joining me on this call.
If you'd like to direct it to the most appropriate respondee, that'd be great.
Hello, this is Morris Atchme. I'm the architect for the new building. I'm not the architect for the restoration work at the Hebron School. However, the payment is being made to the school and they are committed to restoring the school and the church building. A very extensive survey was made, drawings were shown, and the scope of work was also identified at the committee meeting.
Great. Can you speak directly to the question about the breakdown of the 21.6 million of cash versus in-kind rehab?
Well, I think Jeff Gershon, who is one of the principals at Hope Street, might be able to answer that better. It is my understanding that the compensation is being made and they are directing the funds on their own. I don't think that the developer has control of how they spend their money.
Okay, and follow up to that,
Nor do I think that that is typical or appropriate.
Thank you for your response. Following up to that from the same gentleman, Mr. Rob Mandelbaum asked, how does SDA intend to use the cash proceeds, and how much of the cash proceeds will use expressly for this congregation and this location in school? Is there someone, Ms. Raspberry, that can respond to that question from SDA or from Northwest School? Northeast.
Well, we have some team members that are muted, so if you could unmute Shah Denor from Hope Street, he can chime in. Is that possible?
I will defer to the community board
Yes,
administrators.
I'm working on it. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm starting to get, Ms. Tyus, just to acknowledge that we're starting to get kind of some backup of questions. So I'm going to do my best to move through these and as quickly as I can, or as efficiently as I can. Sorry, not quickly.
Mr. Ellis, thank you for bringing that forward. I did caution the project proponents that this is not a second land use committee meeting. So at this point, given the rest of our agenda, I have to ask the project proponents to ask you, Mr. Ellis, to select 2 more questions for which we can get 2 more responses. And at that point, I have to call for a motion on the item.
Well, as we were waiting for the technical response to the previous question, I will mention that there has been a comment made in the chat from Mr. Witherwax that you can review about this location being a crown jewel of Crown Heights. I want to look through, I see a question from Miss, I believe it's Murphy, considering there's concerns for the environmental and health concerns of taking away, sorry, it keeps scrolling back on me, so I have to apologize. Taking away one of only 2 open green spaces in this area, and was this discussed with Hebron since they'll be greatly impacted as well? I will just recall that the presenters did speak about this building being a LEED certified specs in construction and management, but I will continue to pose these questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. I'm asking for 2 more questions, and each one of them would have a response. And at that point, I'm going to ask for a motion, okay?
Okay, well, I mean, we're leaving a lot of comments and questions on the table, Ms. Tyus.
This is not a redo of the land use meeting.
I understand, but we're asking the full board to make a decision and make a vote. So they're not presenting the process.
All of our members have the opportunity to attend the various committee meetings. It's a public meeting. Anyone can attend on the committee level, and we can take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours on the committee level to do the work of the committee. This is a full board meeting, and I am limiting the comments and questions on this item for this meeting at this time. Thank you.
Let me just highlight a couple comments that I think are worthy of repeating in the statement, but read by the board. The committee secretary, it was stated that, hold on, sorry, I keep losing it because it keeps moving. That this project was presented, stated that the project would be as of right when this was not correct. This was clarified in the October 1st meeting. I think the as of right would be by standard zoning regulations. I think that what is not as of right is that this is in a landmark district. And so all things must be reviewed. And we were still waiting for Ms. Lin Yi Wan. I believe Ms. Lin Yi Wan to make her statement. Was the board office able to unmute?
I thought we were waiting to hear from Shay Denor.
Oh, is Shay ready to speak, Mr. Denor?
Yeah, can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
The question was between the 21 points, I believe that was, how does the SDA intend to use the cash proceeds? How much of these proceeds will be used expressly for this congregation and this location?
Well, again, I am a member of Hope Street Capital, not the SDA, so I can't give you that answer in accuracy. What we do know, I'm sorry, is that the renovations themselves, that the crucial repairs necessary for the existing structure are well in excess of $10 million.
And we actually have a letter that I can send over to you right now from the church stating that they intend to spend as much money as necessary to make the repairs. And they're sure that the repairs are in excess of $10 million, but it could obviously exceed that. So I can send you that letter for your record if you want.
Yes, please send it to brooklyncba@gmail.com and I will forward it out to all interested parties immediately.
Okay.
Ms. Neal, make sure, I'm sorry, Ms. Raspberry. Ms. Neal, Ms. Raspberry, make sure that Ms. Raspberry's contact information is in your contact so it doesn't go to spam. Okay?
The previous letter didn't come from Miss Raspberry. It came from a Dawn something or other, and that was the first time I believe that we had our office had gotten an email from her, and that's why it went to spam. When I searched for Mr. Honore's name, I did find it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, while we like just to, in response to Ms. Tyus's request to wrap this up, I'd like to ask the board office to unmute Lin Yuan. And while I do that, I just want to do some clarifications that the concern for the deletion of green space wasn't directly responded to by LEED certification. It's still concerning that there's actual going to be deletion of green space and these related health and environmental issues with deletion of green space. Okay, and then at the same time, sorry.
This is Morris Ajmi, the architect. I'm happy to respond to that if you'd like.
Please do, Mr. Ajmi, and then I'm going to have Ms. Lin Yuan wrap us up with her final statement.
First of all, two things. One, I made it very clear at the committee meeting that this was as of right from a zoning point of view, and I did state that it had to go through LPC. So that's number one. Number two, half of the building is on an existing parking lot, and we are adding green to the overall project, both behind the building, between the Hebron School and the new building, as well as on the roof and around the building.
Thank you. Ms. Yuan?
Hi, my name is Linny Ryan, and I am the owner and resident at 989 Sterling Place, which is 3 doors down from the proposed development. I want to follow up to what Fior had spoken about earlier when she was speaking about affordable housing and Friends of 920 Park. For the record, is a diverse intergenerational coalition of neighbors united in our firm opposition to Hope Street Capital's project at 920 Park Place. To date, we have garnered widespread support. Over 6,500 individuals and counting have signed our petition against this project, and we have received statements of support from local community groups and organizations, including the Crown Heights North Association, the Crown Heights Tenant Union, the Sterling Place Civic Association, the Historic Council, and Crown Heights Mutual Aid. The project is a travesty, no matter which way you look at it, and it must be stopped. Number one, the project goes against landmarks law. The partial demolition of the historic structure, its inappropriate scale and style, the obscured sightlines, the significant adverse impact on the old home's visual entity, and the character-altering changes to the open space are all in direct violation of the city's environmental quality review guidelines for historic buildings. This is cultural erasure, and it begs the question, whose monuments does the city protect? Whose history matters? The proposed project would be the first building of such magnitude built in our historic district since it was given landmark status by the LPC less than 10 years ago, and would set a dangerous precedent for preservation standards in this new historic district. Number two, the project removes half a block of essential green space in a district that is already plagued by higher temperatures and unhealthy environmental conditions due to racist redlining. We are in a climate crisis. How can we possibly continue to ignore devastating impacts of selling away open green space for private profit? The environmental impact of this development is not a footnote. Lives are at stake. Just as a footnote, I am actually pregnant with my second child, and I understand that in these types of construction situations, there's an increase in asthma, environmentally racist kind of affiliated asthma. So removing the little green space available in the majority Black neighborhood is environmental racism, and it is outrageous that Hope Street Capital is not proposing a single green initiative to mitigate the environmental devastation there. Thank you for your time. James, I think you're muted still.
Thank you for that, and thank you for your statement. To follow up on the question about revenue distribution, there's Miriande Demero is here and has offered to clarify that. Mr. and Mrs. Demero, can you please respond?
Good evening, everyone. I am a Hebron member. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I am a Hebron member, so I have all the several Hebron members on the line with me also. At the same time, thank you for giving me this time for clarifying the money distribution. According to the question that was asked before, the money, as per the church leaders and also the Northeastern Conference leaders, they stated that that money will be more than sufficient to fix the school, but only because they don't even know how much it's going to cost to fix the school, because they did not bring anybody up, no architect, no contractor to come and estimated how much it's going to cost to fix the school. And not the school, the whole building, since after we sell this portion of the land, we're not going to have anything else to sell to fix anything in the building. So this is the problem, because none of them have actually take apart. They were saying that they want to fix only 2 floors where the school is currently existing. They want to fix the 2 floors and then invest the rest of the money. And when you do that right now, what happened to the rest of the buildings? Instead of selling that lands over here, why don't we sell the portion that had the senior living assistant building? They can take that and then do whatever they want them they correct it, instead of selling the land right now. We can do that, but they don't want to listen to the youth. Mr. As the letter said, Mr. Honore, they don't want, that's not a true statement, because we were there. We were kicked out because they don't want to answer our question truthfully, since we had the knowledge of the land, the knowledge of what's going on. They don't want to answer our questions.
Thank you for your comments. I'm looking, and the only final comments that I'm seeing that are speaking in response to the green space. Community members wanted to acknowledge this wasn't a parking lot. It is actually a grassy area where cars are parked. And that, and that the green space that will be initiated in this development is tucked away between new and old buildings and will not be the benefit for those living around the area. That is the last of the comments that I believe need to be mentioned. I think Ms. Tyus, according to our process, we usually ask for additional comments or questions from our board members.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. I was about to do that. You and I are twins mentally on this issue. Thank you. I'm asking now for comments from the community board members on this project. Thank you.
I see Mr. Vicconi as wishing to be acknowledged. Go ahead, Mr. Vicconi.
Hi, I have one question for the STA folks, and then maybe a couple of comments. The question is this: so we've heard a lot about who's designing the new building and who's building the new building, but have you identified a contractor to do the restoration of the existing building according to the plans that have been presented to the community board? Is this basically a project that's ready to go once you, assuming you close this deal with Hope Street?
Nothing like that was done. This is Miriam DeMero answering the question. Nothing like that never been done, and that's what I'm saying. They don't even know how much it's going to cost to fix the existing building.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I think that might not be true. I think we heard before that there has been an estimate, and I want to make sure that we're hearing from the project team here, including the SDA. Is there a contractor identified? And is this a project that's ready to move forward if you are able to close?
Morris and Tom, can you please answer that question?
The answer is that I'm not sure if we have a contractor. This is Tom Lewis. I'm sorry, for Morris Admin Architects. I do not know if we have a contractor on board or not. What I do know is that we've identified a scope, and the drawings that were presented by the land use committee last week show what that full scope is of what the renovation is going to be. And you can see that if you're able to look at the presentation from last week.
Okay, but I mean, all right. Let me say this. I'm going to make a couple of comments here. There's a lot of discussion here about affordable housing, and there's a lot of discussion about environmental review. This is not an affordable housing project, though. and it's not an affordable housing review. The LPC will not consider the affordable housing component of this project when passing on its application for a certificate of appropriateness. All of the community members who are speaking about this should understand that. Second, because the project from a zoning point of view is as of right, there is no environmental analysis necessary. So there's really no opportunity to argue that in the scope of a certificate of appropriateness application. So the community board could potentially take a position against this project, but if it takes it for those reasons, we will not. The LPC will not consider that. Will be unlikely to consider that opinion and that advice. If we want the landmarks commissioners to consider what outcome we'd like to see in this project, we will need to say what that outcome should be. If we want to have some influence with the applicants, we should tell them what kind of outcome we want, not expect that we can make this project go away by arguing that the affordable housing is too expensive, which I believe it is, or that it'll have adverse environmental impacts, which I don't know if it will or not. I am concerned, though, that the proceeds from the sale to SDA could be used for something other than remodeling the existing building, and not remodeling, but restoring the existing building. I think that building is a beautiful building, and I would like to see it salvaged. And I would even like to see it salvaged as a function of a project like this that could be made more acceptable to the community. But I don't see that there is. I don't see that there is there's an absolute commitment to do that. And have this project go forward and not have the existing building remodeled, I think would be a mistake. Having said that, the LPC isn't going to consider that guidance either, and I think we need to consider what would make this project acceptable. And I'm speaking to the community board members now. If for no other reason than we've given some guidance to the commissioners when they review this project that they at least will discuss in the meeting. For instance, I believe that the facade on Sterling Place is the most objectionable element of this project from a design point of view. It overwhelms the brownstones next to it, and it could be mitigated by reducing the setback down to 4 stories rather than 6. And I would be interested in hearing a commitment from the project team if they'd be willing to do that. If so, I might favor a motion to withhold support conditioned on the updating their plans. Are you, project team, would you be willing to make such a concession?
Hi, this is Morris Hatch, the architect for the project. And I think I stated at the committee meeting that we would certainly entertain a discussion about the design. Unfortunately, that wasn't where we ended up focused, or where all the energy was focused. So I would say yes, we would be open to entertaining that. And just to follow up a little bit on the issue about whether it's ready to go. The school retained Caples Jefferson, who specialize in restoration work, to do an extensive analysis and a scope of work. And based on that, they obtained preliminary pricing. I was not privy to that. However, what I would say is that if this is approved, or once we go forward, they would then do detailed drawings and then proceed to have that fully priced. But they have committed to doing both the structural work and the restoration work as identified in the scope of those drawings.
Thank you both. Are there any other questions from land use committee members?
I have a statement. I'd like to say something.
Yes, I believe Ms. Young.
Sorry, Ms. Young, I need to stop you real quick because Mr. Todd was looking to be acknowledged before I got your notice. So if you don't mind.
No problem.
And then Ms. Young. Mr. Todd?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think that last comment by the architect helped clarify my questions. There was mention of a scope, but a scope is very tenuous, especially with historic properties. The cost could easily go way beyond what preliminary estimates. And those of us who live in the community know that the top 2 floors have never been used by the school. And we wonder if, in fact, they're sincere and actually want to renovate the entire property, seeing that they're only using half of it. It would be a great tragedy if they only renovated part of the building and left the rest of it to decay. I mean, if they're not using it, what interest have they in renovating it? That's just kind of a practical consideration.
Sir, Mr. Todd, I just want to state that the school would love to utilize their entire building, but they were unable to because of structural problems and Department of Building regulations. Currently, they are leasing space at another location to educate their students because they are interested in operating their school. And as soon as the building meets the required standards for operation, they will move their school back in and they will utilize the entire facility as well as the gymnasium that they are being deeded in this proposal.
So would the developers or the school be offering some kind of assurance, as in a bond or a financial
Mr. Todd, I'm sorry you were not able to attend the open meeting for the Land Use Committee to ask these questions. The Land Use Committee meetings are advertised on the board's calendar. So at this point, I would ask if we need to bring this back to land use so that these questions can be explored. What say you, committee members?
Hold on. Well, we're at the board, but Ms. Young was next in the queue for a comment.
I understand that, Mr. Ellis, and what I'm seeing and hearing is a raft, a multitude of really meaningful questions and really revelatory answers that tell me we didn't do a good job on October 1st. And possibly we need to ask to lay this over and ask them to come back in November. I don't know.
Well, as the chair, you certainly have that privilege.
So at this point, I don't want to ask for a motion to lay over if the committee members think we should move forward.
I would make that motion.
As the applicant, we'd actually like to move forward. We just don't see, we would really like to move forward in the process tonight. Jay Siegel, who's our attorney, is on the line. If you can unmute his microphone, he can speak about that.
I understand that, but it's not his decision. Okay. At this point, I need to hear from the full board as to whether or not they think this is something that's ripe for a full board vote, or it should go back to committee, because we're getting all of these really deep questions and revelatory answers. Caples Jefferson's handling the pricing when Everardo Jefferson is a commissioner on the LPC.
Oh, that's absurd.
Interesting. So I don't know. I'm just asking the full board members, the appointed members, to weigh in on that.
I would make a motion to hold this
Sarah,
over
before we
until
make a motion, can we just have a little, I mean, we can make a motion
sure.
to have a discussion. This is Sharon Wedderburn. But I would have to support Chair Tice in saying that this this meeting is evidence that there was not the vetting that we had in the Land Use Committee was insufficient to answer the needs of both the full board and the committee. And although I've heard Ms. Raspberry express that she has no desire to do so, I would say that she can take the temperature in the room. And if she were to receive a no vote on behalf of her on behalf of her clients, it would yield to a result that would be not desirable to neither the community board or to the applicant.
I would like to just remind the board members that their calendar.
Sorry.
Echo, whoever's speaking this.
Was the board office speaking?
Ms.
I
Tyus, I
believe
just would like
Michelle was making a statement.
Ms. Tyus, I would just like to remind the board that there's an LPC hearing scheduled for October 20th. So laying it over to December will not delay the LPC hearing on October 20th.
And also LPC has been historically loath to postpone hearings that have been scheduled when the applicant has already met with the board.
We have a raft of unanswered questions. At this point, we're dealing with agency practice. LPC, if I remember correctly, LPC set that meeting back in the summer. I cannot make this decision on my own. So I ask for a motion from the floor on this item.
Well, I would love to table it. I think we've lost that opportunity if it's already been calendared at LPC. So I think we need to dispose of it tonight.
Your microphone is unmuted. You need to start speaking. They can hear. I can hear you speaking when you're talking to me on the phone.
I would like to weigh in. I think that if we are moving forward with the LPC hearing on 10/20 and that cannot be changed, then I think that a motion needs to be made on this item this evening. I would not want us to be in a position to it go forward without the board having some input. I also wanted to say something earlier, and I'd like to use this opportunity. Some of it addresses some statements that was made by Mr. Bocconi, and I want to assure you that those who have spoken this evening are quite well aware of what comes under the purview, of LPC. However, we wanted to make sure that all of our concerns were heard, including the lack of affordable housing for this community. In addition to the issues that directly impact this historic district. So please, I don't want anyone to assume that we're not knowledgeable about what has to go forward before LPC.
Thank you.
Also, and last thing, I am prepared to make a motion as well.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Okay, I'm not seeing, I don't know if Mr. Ellis is seeing things in the chat that tilt one way or the other as far as attempting to dispose of this evening.
No, there's been no other indications of other outstanding questions. But if I may add to Ms. Young's statement that if we are to make a motion, and if that motion were to echo that of the committee, then I think that any motion made tonight should have a few items of substantive concerns with the actual structure, design, massing, and volume of this building. Obviously, there are concerns for lack of green space, concerns for affordability, concerns for the stylistic implementation of that building being smaller apartments for single people. But the point that Mr. Bocconi made before he had to leave was that LPC is looking at aesthetics, massing, and volumes in conjunction with the character of the neighborhood. So if there is a motion to be made that's not going to support this, then we need to have some items to indicate within that vein and along those lines of why it is that this motion is not being supported at this time.
I completely agree with you, Mr. Ellis. And I just want to make sure that we understand that the tide is turning in the favor of community. And as a matter of fact, New York Law School is having a webinar coming up on the marriage between government and community. And I'm seeing also legislation at the council level indicating that they are very interested in the marriage between urban design and community health. So those issues will be coming forward. They will be knitted into the considerations of LPC on the historic preservation level, so that we should be mindful that we can influence decisions by agencies like city planning and the Landmarks Preservation Commission in our favor as a community. So with that said, I am not so sure that if we decided to lay it over, that we could not get LPC to change the date. But again, I'm only one person in this community board, and I'm asking now for a motion on this item, whichever way it goes, considering all the things that we know about it now and all the things that we think we know, and it seems the things that we don't know. So I'm asking for a motion on the item.
Okay.
I know Ms. Young was about to make a motion, but just procedurally, Chair Tyus, we can take a position tonight and then still kick it off another month or two for LPC and give the applicant an opportunity to come back and argue against or for whatever position we took. They can both happen, but I think we need to dispose of this tonight.
Okay. Could you repeat that, please, Mr. Witherwax? I'm sorry, I missed the essence of what you were proposing.
Oh, I was saying that I think you should make your motion, and we should just take position on the project tonight, whatever that may be. We can still work with the applicant and LPC to move the date off and do another deeper dive at the committee level, but I think we need to take a position tonight.
Okay, all righty. With that, I want to make a motion, but I want to say that there are a number of elements as to that's based on my motion. I don't want to take the time to read all of those points because it's somewhat lengthy. What I would like to make note for the record is that
I'm sorry, Ms. Young. Ms. Young, if you have a statement in support of your motion, I ask you to read it in its entirety.
Oh my goodness gracious. Okay. All righty. Well, before I make my motion, I also want to share with the full committee that Crown Heights North Association submitted a lengthy letter about its position, as did Friends of 920, which outlays numerous reasons why this project should be opposed. However, my motion, I move that the committee withhold support for the new building proposed for the campus of Hebron School at 920 Park Place. A number of my motion is based on some of the following reasons. The proposed plan will negatively affect the architectural integrity of the Hebron site. The proposed plan completely competes with, rather than being deferential to, the existing Hebron building in scale, bulk, and its materials. Hebron is the gem of Crown Heights North. It is an intact, picturesque, Romanesque revival Gothic institutional building and the only building of its kind remaining in central Brooklyn. The erasure of the open space surrounding the Hebron buildings will obscure the legibility of the landmark's historical identity as an institutional structure. The project will be a substantial adverse impact on our architectural resource of the Crown Heights North Historic District that will result in the isolation of the property from or alteration of its settings or visual relationships with the streetscape. This includes changes to the resource visual prominence so that it no longer conforms to the streetscape in terms of height, footprint, or setback. It will no longer be a part of an open setting or can no longer be seen as a part of a significant view corridor. The proposed plan is an urbanistic departure from established tenets of the neighborhood, including breaking the street wall, and its scale is incongruent with the streetscape of the 3- and 4-story row houses on Sterling Place between New York and Brooklyn Avenue.
Thank you, Ms. Young. That motion.
Thank you, Ms. Young. I believe your motion is to the full board. And I'm asking now if there's a second for Ms. Young's motion.
Second.
Is that you, Ms. Lazar?
It is.
Thank you very much. So Ms. Young, I would ask, now that your motion is on the floor, I want to get any other comments on that. And I have to ask you to please either put your statement in the chat or send it by email to the board office with a copy to me. And then now we will explore take any questions and have a discussion on your motion to withhold support, and then we'll ask for a vote from Mr. Witherwax's role. Any questions or comments on the motion?
Nothing indicated at this time.
Mr. Witherwax, can you please call the roll on this motion to withhold support?
Who seconded that motion, please?
Ms. Lazar.
Thank you.
Ms. Lazar beat me to the punch by 5 milliseconds.
And Mr. Witherwax, I have to ask you to do what Channel 2 does on their morning news, give a 20-second pause as you wait for responses on your roll call.
20-second pause with 50 members. I'll see what I can do.
Thank you.
Mr. Allison.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Allison. Ms. Andrews. Mr. Atkins. Ms. Atkinson.
I'm sorry, Mr. Witherwax, I want to make sure that people understand that the language is switched. If you're voting yes to withhold support, you're voting no on the project.
That's correct. The motion on the floor is to oppose the project for the reasons outlined in Ms. Young's excellent presentation, which was succinct and was to the heart of the aesthetic matter that LPC deals with and doesn't delve into the other side topics. If you vote yes, you support Ms. Young's position. Ms. Atkinson.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Atkinson. Mr. Bailey. Ms. Ben James. Ms. Boyd. Ms. Branch Mohammed.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Buckholz.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Boyd.
Ms. Boyd.
No.
Ms. Boyd just said yes.
And Mr. Buckholz says no.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buckholz. Mr. Callahan.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan. Ms. Charles, Ms. Coley, Ms. Daniel.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Daniel. Mr. Ellis.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Mr. Farley.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Farley. Ms. Ferris, Mr. Frazier, Mr. Gabriel, Ms. Gibbs, Ms. Granville.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Granville. Ms. Harris Blenman. Ms. Henry.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Henry. Ms. Jordan.
All right. Was that Miss Blenman or Miss Harris that just voted yes? Sorry.
I believe that was Ms.
Henry.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Jordan. Ms.
Mr.
Kinsey.
Response by way of text is
Thank you, Mr. Thurton. Ms. Kinsey.
Miss, say it
Thank you,
again.
Ken.
You heard her? Okay. Okay, he heard you.
Ms. Lazar.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Lazar. Ms. Lemaine. Ms. Mahoney.
She'll be voting by chat shortly.
Mr. Mickelsteins.
He voted yes in chat.
Thank you. Mr. Puka.
He voted yes in chat.
Thank you. Mr. Raji.
No.
That was a no from Mr. Raji. Thank you. Mr. Sachs.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. Mr. Saunders.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Saunders. Ms. Soko. Mr. Stanton. Ms. Supervielle. Ms. Tate Hall. Mr. Thurton.
yes.
Thank you, Mr. Thurton. Mr. Todd.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Todd. Ms. Tyus.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Tyus. Mr. Vicconi. Mr. Villas. Ms. Watson.
I'm not hearing the responses. I know Vicconi's on the line. What did he
No,
vote?
Mr. Vicconi.
On the line. You're hearing everything.
Okay, I'm not.
Ms. Weatherspoon.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Weatherspoon. Ms. Wedderburn. Mr. Witherwax, yes. Ms. Young?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Did I hear Ms. Wedderburn?
The vote is yes.
Mr. Witherwax, I have a couple more to record. Ms. Mahoney votes yes. Harris Blitman votes yes.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Thank you,
And
Mr.
Drew Gabriel also votes yes in the chat.
Just received that in the chat. Thank you, Mr. Gabriel.
All right, the motion passes. 27 in favor, 2 opposed.
How many opposed?
2.
Okay, thanks.
Any abstentions?
Nope.
Thank you very much, Mr. Witherwax.
I have an update. Miss Muriel Lemaine wants to vote yes.
28.
Okay. So at this point, we have foreclosed our opportunity to have any further engagement with the project sponsors on this level. And we would look at working with them as we move towards the October 20th LPC hearing. I thank Ms. Raspberry and her team for joining us at this meeting this evening. I don't know if we have representatives from our elected officials in the audience who wish to speak to this project. But if there are, I would ask you to put your name in the chat and your representation and come forward and speak to this issue or other issues concerning CB8 at this time. Ms. George, do we have, seeing none, any representatives from our elected officials in the audience? Then I would ask Ms. George if we have other agenda items we need to attend to before we close the meeting.
We have committee reports, elected official reps.
Hello, I'm here.
Okay, and we have with
Can you
us.
please just use the chat function to be acknowledged? Is that it?
So we're gonna go into our committees. We have economic development.
Thank you. So we have our committee reports and then we'll do the elected representatives.
Okay.
Yes.
Ms. George?
Yes, yes.
Who's next up for the committee reports?
Economic development. Brian, you want to give just a brief update?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time. And economic development will be there for a little while, and we're looking to get back started. Our first meeting will be November the 10th, I believe. Looking for some members to get involved. If you're interested in the Economic Development Committee, please contact Michelle George, and I look forward to working with anyone who wants to participate. Thank you.
Youth and education. Ms. Wedderburn?
Good evening. I had difficulty unmuting myself. Youth and Education Committee met last Tuesday, and the most important quarterly decision we made is that we will not meet in the month of November in honor of the late, great Kwasi Mensah, who, when he was vice chair, often opposed to us meeting on Election Day. So with that being said, we've had the reopening of schools, remote and hybrid learning. There's some challenges with schools in our districts. One school, PS9, in regards to incomplete construction. Construction was halted because of budget issues, and that project will be completed, according to a representative from Majority Leader Cumbo's office, Arna Lipkin. That's one item. Two, we have another outdoor learning site at PS 705, which is located in the PS 22 building, which is Classen Avenue in Bergen. as well as PS 316 will be utilizing the park, their exclusive use of the park for outdoor learning activities. In this time of COVID and us being adjacent to several hot button issues or hot zones, I would just want to remind everyone to practice social distancing, wearing their masks, and making sure that you're doing everything that you can do so that we won't have the continued spread and expansion of a lockdown within our district. Be kind to children, be kind to parents who are becoming teachers in a role that they had never anticipated prior to March 2020, and be kind to crossing guards because they are on their posts. And as with many people in the community, they're the first to be aware of news aside from our school's public safety officers. So with that being said, the next meeting of the committee will be in December.
Do you have a date?
Oh, if I could see a calendar, but it is the second Tuesday in December, yes.
Thank you.
December 8th. December 8th. December 8th is the second Tuesday.
Thank you, Ms. George. Who's the next committee to report? Thank you, Ms. Weatherwax. as well.
EST, Environment, Sanitation, Transportation.
Good evening, everybody. Very briefly, we will be meeting virtually on the 27th of October to sort of discuss a wrap-up of the Livable Streets project going on in our district all summer. And we welcome those who want to discuss sanitation, environmental, and transportation issues, some of which have been already percolated here tonight in the chat and elsewhere in the budget discussions. Come out, join the committee, and we'll try to get it on for next year. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Witherwax. We did have some back and forth on the 5G hardware that DoIT is allowing vendors to install, especially along, I think it's the corner of Eastern Parkway and New York Avenue. I hope that'll be on the agenda. Thank you. Who's the next committee to report?
Housing. Housing.
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Okay. Good evening. I just want to let you all know that we will be having our first virtual meeting this coming Wednesday, October 14th, and we will start at 6 o'clock. I look forward to working with everyone, and I understand that we have a group that will be coming that is concerned about security in buildings within New York City. I don't remember the name of the organization, but I believe they will be coming to speak to us about their concerns about safety and security. I urge anyone who is concerned about anything that has to do with tenants and tenants' rights to please come out to give us your voice and give us your feelings and give us your input. And we could definitely use some new, fresh blood. So I look forward to seeing you this Wednesday. Thank you.
Who's next?
Parks is next. Parks Committee. Public Safety.
Hey, good day. Mark Thurton. We had our first public safety meeting on Monday, September the 28th. It was pretty good. We had about 10 members come in, and I want to thank the new memberships that participated. For our what's going on for our NCOs, we're not going to have our NCOs meeting as of yet. We're waiting for the 77th and 78th precinct to advertise when they're going to have the NCO meetings. And once that's established, we'll be sending out the information. And our next meeting will be on Monday, October the 20th at 6 o'clock. We'll send out information, and everyone is invited to participate. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may ask, direct a comment or a question to Mr. Thurton, the chair of the Public Safety Committee.
Of course.
Mr. Thurton, in my portion of the Ward 8 district, our local buildings are having a really increased spate of package theft from our lobbies, from our doorsteps, and from just general mismanagement of these packages being delivered. I'm wondering if there's any engagement happening with the local precincts to address this increase in package thefts within the Community Board of 8 district.
That police officer Vidal did speak on the packages, and they did mention if they could be delivered to one of the storage locations. But what I can do, I mean, they can participate on the call, and he can give much more details on what steps can be done to prevent them. And also, if there's a specific building that's of concern, what can be done is that they can visit the location and give recommendations that can that can improve on the safety of delivering of packages. So if anyone have a specific building or specific area that can be addressed, you can send it over to Community Board, and we'll touch base with the 77th or the 78th precinct and see how they can address it specifically with the residents of the building if needed. Anything else, Mr. Ellis?
Thank you.
Okay.
It's George, who's next? I don't have my agenda in front of me.
Next is seniors.
Thank you.
All right, good evening. This is Gail Muhammad, Chair of the Senior Committee. The Senior Committee met last night. We meet the first Wednesday of every month. We had, who did we have? Darryl White from the Attorney General's office did a presentation last night. It was very informative. I got feedback from seniors today that they did enjoy the presentations and that they did learn things. I've requested him to send out pamphlets because they wanted to have some of the material to be able to share with their neighbors. Last week, Diane Richardson sent food. I delivered boxes of fresh fruit and vegetables to the site. And I have committed to do that at least once a month. I've also received a call from Congressmember Yvette Clarke's office, and they're interested in providing supplies to the seniors also. One of the issues that we found out last night that the seniors, although the calls are working, the telephone conference working, it would be very nice if they had tablets. So they gave out air conditioners in the summer. We're not looking for heaters for the winter, but we would like to get some tablets for the seniors so that they do not feel so isolated, and especially for the winter months when they're not able to get out and around as much. So thank you, and we look forward to you coming out on November 4th. We're hoping that we'll have some good trouble by the time November 4th comes around. So we look forward to you coming or calling in. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Muhammad. Who's next?
Can I ask a question for the senior committee? I don't know how to help with this, Gail, but if there's any way that I could be of help with helping the seniors get their votes in, I'd be willing to help with that. I'm concerned about the handicapped and the elderly, making sure their vote gets counted, gets registered, gets where it needs to go. So if anything comes up with any seniors that need some help, I'd be willing to help with that.
We did go over that last night. We went over the ballots, the mail-in procedures, the early voting. However, 230 Kingston Avenue is a polling site. So most of them vote in the building.
Good.
So it was not an issue, but we did go over that and explain it to them.
Good.
But thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all. Thank you both. Ms. George, who's next?
Any elected officials, elected official reps, or comment?
Bylaws Committee.
What committee?
I have a report from
bylaws committee. Update from the bylaws committee.
I also have a message from the health committee sent on text.
Go first, James.
Sure. So from Ms. Mahoney of the health committee, she says she would like to report the health committee would like to begin meetings in the next 2 weeks. We'll be setting our priorities and plan for the 2021 year. We will be distributing a doodle poll soon to assess interest in optimal meeting times for everyone to join us. Thank you.
Excellent. Bylaws is next. Thank you, Mr. Witherwax.
Bylaws, I will keep this to 2 minutes or less. So as we went over on the September meeting, we have made some adjustments to the bylaws. There's about 12 small changes, which cumulatively come up to 12 small changes. I want to thank Ms. Ursa Weatherspoon, Ms. Sharon Wedderburn, Mr. Mark Thornton, and Ms. Najani Granville, along with myself, Ms. Michelle George, and of course our esteemed chair, Ms. Ethel Tyus, worked over the summer to identify these problems and come up with good solutions for them. So our protocol is we have to read them into the record in October and November, and then vote on them in December. So you're going to have this memorized by the time we come around for December. But let me read the changes into the record briefly. And this was all circulated to you. If you didn't get it, please reach out to the board office. So the bylaws updates. Membership. There are 3 changes. Default language defining leaves of absence from board service. Notice requirements for excuses from a given meeting. If you can't make it, have the good grace to call in and say, I can't make it. And shortened notice requirements for removal proceedings. We're taking it from a 30-day to 21-day window. Elections, 2 small changes. We're putting what I'm calling an escape clause in the event we cannot meet in person that will permit the nominating committee and the district managers to set alternate rules for elections, because right now we're kind of locked into an in-person signed ballot. And we're saying no need to elect officers to fill vacancies. The chair can appoint, and the remaining officers of the board can approve. Third category, officers, 3 small changes. We're defining the chair as the board as a non-voting member of all committees. We're establishing an emeritus status for a retiring board chair who has served at least 2 terms. Will carry that title for the next board year. And we're giving more specific definitions of duties for the vice chairs, the secretary, and the sergeant at arms. Fourth category, 3 small changes. Committees. Vice chairs will be chosen by the board chair in consultation with the committee chair. Currently, the board chair just says who the vice chairs are. We're defining the way committees must meet at least 4 times in a given board year. Right now it says quarterly, and that language is wrong. And we're shrinking our executive committee. It will be only comprised of officers and the chairs of the committees only. Currently, the vice chairs sit on the executive committee. Now we're removing that function to make the executive committee smaller. Fifth category, last category, 3 small changes, miscellaneous. We're defining the district manager some personnel authority. We're saying that any changes we make to these bylaws will be incorporated automatically into the bylaws of Friends of Community Board 8, our nonprofit arm. And we're clarifying the definition of a term and a year. A term is the member's 2-year term or an officer's 2-year term of office. A board year runs from September 1 to the end of August. And we wanted to make sure that there was no cross confusion between those 2. Those are the changes. You've all gotten the documents, so you can actually read both how it currently reads, how we propose it to read, and a comparison between the 2. And I'll do this again in November, and we'll vote in December. Thank you very much.
That was great, Mr. Witherwax. Thank you very much. Ms. George, what's next?
Elected officials, elected official reps.
At this point, I've only identified Mr. Orlando Ross from Congresswoman Yvette Clarke's office as in attendance.
Also have Kim Robinson. Kim Robinson is also on from Alika Samuel's office.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, Ms. Robinson.
Mr. Ross, please proceed.
Hello, everyone. Greetings from Congresswoman Yvette Clarke's office. Wanted to give you guys greetings. Wanted to remind everyone that the census is still going on. According to the HTC map, if you look on the side, I was able to give you the hard to count map as pertaining to the census. And it seems that Crown Heights area, in your zip code, you're doing a little bit better by 66.7%, but you still have a lot to go. October 31st is the last day. Everyone, I want to make sure that everyone knows that early voting is going to be taking place. I'm pretty sure everyone knows about that. But the key thing is that our office was sending out information about absentee ballots. I know that people were having issues with their absentee ballots being incorrect. We want to let you know that I believe October 9th is going to be the final day that you can apply for it. If you have any questions on trying to find a better way or trying to rectify that issue with your absentee ballots, feel free to email me or contact me, and I'll send you our information. The last thing I want to talk about also is about some legislation that's coming through. Everyone knows about the HEROES Act and the COVID Relief Act. As you know, the HEROES Act was recently updated for $2.2 trillion. It will provide $436 billion in much needed support for state and local governments. As you know, that we're having an issue with a deficit with the city, and we want to make sure that everyone is funded. But that would have to mean that the Senate would have to vote on it, but it has been passed by the House. We have a few things regarding the George Floyd Act, which is dealing with racial issues that are going on with the NYPD. All of the information, all the different bills have been posted in your chat group. Feel free to go through that. And I don't want to take too much of your time because we've been on for a long period of time. Just want to say that it's a pleasure to be back. And if you need anything, feel free to reach out to me. My name is Orlando Ross. I work with Congresswoman Yvette Clarke.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Can you please put your email address in the chat so that people can get in touch with you as you indicated? Thank you.
If I may, I'll call Robinson to speak.
Yes, Mr. Ellis.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kim Robinson, and I represent Councilmember Alika Ampry Samuel's office. On behalf of the council member, I bring greetings. Mr. Ross basically said it all, really want to stress the sensors, and also stress, with COVID, that for us to maintain safety, wear a mask is very important. Our office is closed, however, we are there remotely. So if anyone has any questions, concern, issue, you can either email. I'll put my information in the chat. My email is krobinson@council.nyc.gov. Telephone number, direct cell number is 646-574-7661. And I'll put that information in the chat. And again, the censors, get everyone to vote, encourage someone. If someone mentioned that they'll be willing to take somebody to the vote, we encourage that to everyone. If you know someone, assist, help, cars, whatever you need to do, definitely we want to make sure that everyone gets out to vote. And again, I want to stress the importance of being safe and wearing a mask. On behalf of the council member, everyone be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Finally, I have identified Mr. Bayalama from Senator Zelma Myri's office. Mr. Bayalama, are you available?
He's unmuted. Godfrey?
He was having problems with audio and video earlier.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Godfrey Bayalama here on behalf of Senator Myrie. Bring greetings on his behalf. Our office is actually open, but just for appointments. So if you have a pressing issue that needs to be addressed, please reach out to our office. Our phone number is 718-284-4700. And we can be able to help you if you set up an appointment. I'm not going to repeat what Orlando and Kim have just mentioned regarding the census and regarding voting. The last day to register to vote is tomorrow. So if you haven't done so, please do so. That's it for us. Thank you so much and have a good night.
Thank you, Mr. Bayalama. That is all I have been notified as representatives from our elected officials. I now defer back to the board chair.
Any old business? Oh, any old business?
Yes. Yes, we have old business that affects all of us. City planning has been asking for recommendations on rezoning the area that Mr. Vacconi was very instrumental in naming M-Crown. And we're going to try that again. We have a plan for gathering that information and moving forward. We want to look at the population and demographics, the urban design and mapping, how to do the massing, and capital planning for the neighborhood rezoning. We want to start that at our next land use committee meeting, which is always the first Thursday. So we will be also asking city planning to do a presentation on zoning, about 20 minutes. And they're prepared to answer questions from you as community board members. It doesn't have to be a land use committee meeting. We can set another date. And I'll work with Ms. George to identify a date. They're willing to do that. So if you have questions about zoning as it relates to our district, in particular, M-Crown, please submit them to me and the community board office. You have my email address, I'm sure. If not, I'll put it in the chat. We will gradually approach this. Mr. Barak, the land use director for the Brooklyn Borough President, is willing to do a follow-up webinar on ULURP so that when we meet as a committee, we understand what those processes and constructs are, and we can ask the correct questions, informative questions to applicants who come before us. Because we will see development in M-Crown, and we will see a lot of development in Weeksville, in addition to Crown Heights North, okay? So we'll discuss this more. We'll be publishing opportunities for dates. Work with Ms. George and Ms. Neal. Maybe we'll do a survey to identify dates when we can get DCP, Department of City Planning, to start the educational outreach and to do the seminar. And if we want questions, so submit questions in about what you want to know about zoning as it pertains to our community district, in particular, M-Crown. So that's number one, and we'll go along with this process as we move through the fall and into the winter. That's it for that. What else do we have on our agenda, Ms. George?
Mr. Ellis, you want to read the comment from Kathy?
Yes. We have an item for other business that wants to be read from Kathleen Islin of the North Prospect Heights Association.
Ms. Islin, please proceed. 2 minutes. Is she there?
Wait.
She might have to be muted by the board office.
I'm muted.
Thank you for this opportunity to read this statement on behalf of the North Prospect Heights Association. And it's a very good segue from Chairman Tyus's mentioning zoning issues and a presentation that might educate us all about zoning issues. This statement reads, the New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development recently published the schedule for the community engagement process on plans to develop 516 Bergen Street and 542 Dean Street, which are HPD properties. HPD's announcement asks for community participation regarding the development of new affordable housing and neighborhood amenities in Prospect Heights. HPD development at one or both of these sites could involve rezoning or upzoning from existing R6B zoning. A change to the zoning of mid-block sites will likely generate changes to zoning across a broader area. The North Prospect Heights Association advocates maintaining existing zoning at the sites. In our neighborhood, public infrastructure is already overtaxed and public open space is scarce. Any HPD development proposal should include plans for public infrastructure and public open space. HPD should make a good faith, transparent effort to review and, where possible, make use of unused residential capacity in our neighborhood and all around the city before undertaking new development. Successful development sites will require close and regular consultation, organization, and other community groups. And we would love to engage Community Board 8 in the discussion of these really rapidly developing situation with the HPD sites. And I thank you very much for the time.
I have an update. So we heard from HPD today. They are planning a community meeting on October 21st regarding the Bergen and Dean sites. So once we get additional information, we will disseminate the information to the community. So that's a community meeting on October 21st.
Do you have a time?
I don't have a time. I don't have further information. Once I get it from HPD, I'll be sure to e-blast it out.
Is there a way to get a commitment from HPD to have a regular attendance at our land use committee meeting?
We are still working on that. We've been back and forth.
Okay.
So any public comments, announcements?
I have an announcement. I received a second ballot today, even though my first ballot was right. My absentee ballot. I know people that received incorrect ballots. I hope they've received corrected ballots, but I have received a second correct ballot. Interesting.
Vote in person if you can.
Well, I'm going to fill out my ballot and drop it off at the polling, at the Board of Election. That'll take care of it. I don't have to deal with a crowd. Okay, so unless there's anything else.
Anything else, Ms. George? Are we finished?
No, we're done. We're done. We can attend.
I'll just make a final shout out that tomorrow's the last day to register to vote. I know one of our elected representatives had mentioned that already, but just re-edifying that tomorrow is the last day to register to vote.
We will,
Thank you, Mr. Ellis.
send out an
Can I
e-blast.
chime in? Can I chime in one more time, guys? I think in light of what's going on in the community right now, I think the best thing to do is just, if you find that you're having a problem trying to get your votes in, go to the Board of Election and just drop off your stuff. Don't wait for anybody. Just go in, drop off your ballots, and that way you avoid any kind of confusion, or just do early voting. That will be, if you feel that you could do that. But if you feel that it would be better to avoid any confusion, just drop it off. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Mr. Ross, and make sure you use your security.
And you have to wear your social mask. Exactly.
your security envelope and your mailing envelope are different. So make sure that you look at that very closely. If you're going to mail it, put your ballot in your security envelope, and then you put it in the mailing envelope, okay?
And postage is required.
One more thing, guys. I also put if you have not done your census, and I'm pretty sure everyone has done it, I have put in the chat line where you could do it online. So if you could just you could go through the notes. I have the link. Pass it to someone that has not done the census. You're only at 66%. We want to try and get it to 70.
Thank you.
Excellent.
If there's nothing else, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
A second.
Full second.
Gail.
Okay.
See you all next month. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. George. Thank you, Ms. Neal.
Thank you. Good
You guys
night.
are wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Take care.
Thank you. Good night.